StudyIQ IAS, अब तैयारी हुई अफोर्डेबल।
नमस्कार दोस्तों, मेरा नाम है करम योगी दिवाकर बोत्रा और मैं आप सबका स्वागत करता हूं अपनी सीरीज सोशियोलॉजी इन 10 मिनट्स। चैप्टर हम कर रहे हैं स्ट्रैटिफिकेशन, चैप्टर नंबर 5। टॉपिक है आज एथनिसिटी एंड रेस एज अ फॉर्म ऑफ स्ट्रैटिफिकेशंस। अगर सब टॉपिक देखो तो डायमेंशंस ऑफ स्ट्रैटिफिकेशन, उसके नीचे क्लास और स्टेटस हमने ऑलरेडी किया है और आज एथनिसिटी और रेस करेंगे और इसके बाद वाले एपिसोड में मैं जेंडर एज अ फॉर्म ऑफ स्ट्रैटिफिकेशन डिस्कस करूंगा। एपिसोड नंबर है 46। आई होप ये 45 एपिसोड इससे पहले जो रहे, it has seriously helped you in your preparation as far as the discipline of sociology with respect to UPSC is concerned. अब एथनिसिटी एंड रेस एज अ फॉर्म ऑफ स्ट्रैटिफिकेशन हम देखें तो इससे पहले हमें जानना पड़ेगा कि व्हाट एग्जैक्टली इज द मीनिंग ऑफ एथनिसिटी। एथनिसिटी रेफर्स टू कल्चरल आइडेंटिटी। The concept of ethnicity is difficult to it's difficult to arrest the concept of ethnicity within a particular aspect or within a particular with a particular characteristics. Why? Because ethnicity can largely come out of culture, can come out of religion, can come out of water, Kaveri disputes, ethnic identities, language, can come out from various other manifestations such as food, clothing, etc. Therefore, Varghesian Khaka advocates that ethnicity is a stretchable identity, that many factors can largely lead to the development of ethnic consciousness among the people residing in a particular society, belonging to a particular community, following a particular aspects of cultural belief systems and ritual practices. So, ethnicity in simplest most term refers to a cultural identity. Up to what extent ethnicity is actually can help us in understanding the stratification of a society. आपको अच्छे से पता है stratification का मतलब होता है ranked arrangement of social groups which can be based on different criteria. Here we are talking about क्या ethnicity हमें modern society के stratification को समझने में मददगार साबित होती है। क्या हम ethnicity के बेसिस पे society के stratified जो ग्रुप्स है या जो रैंड अरेंजमेंट है स्ट्रैटिफिकेशन, उसे समझ सकते हैं क्या? इफ यू लुक इनटू द मॉडर्नाइजेशन स्कूल ऑफ टॉनी and others, you will find that the modernization school believed that with the rise of rationality, the ascribed identities would largely be sidelined and the merit or the achieved identity would become the basis of ranking the social groups in society. Ascribed identity में मेजरली आपका आता है जेंडर, एथनिसिटी, रेस, कास्ट। मॉडर्नाइजेशन स्कूल ये मानती थी कि जैसे जैसे मॉडर्न सोसाइटी आएगी, रैशनैलिटी बढ़ती जाएगी और रैशनैलिटी बढ़ने के कारण जो ग्रुपिंग होगी उसकी रैंकिंग अब कोई एस्क्राइब्ड फैक्टर पे नहीं, एक मेरिट बेसिस पे होगी। क्या इस मॉडर्नाइजेशन स्कूल की ये अंडरस्टैंडिंग जो हम देख रहे हैं वो सही साबित हुई या फिर आज भी बहुत सारी मॉडर्न सोसाइटी एथनिसिटी के बेसिस पे स्ट्रैटिफाइड है? बिफोर अंडरस्टैंडिंग दैट इंफॉर्मेशन, today we are starting our batch 2 of sociology. I have already thanked you for the response which you have given to us as a study IQ team in our batch 1. The batch 2 starts from today. The fees is this: you can use the code DIVLIFE. In this batch, not only the content would be sociologically analyzed, discussed in the simplest most form. आपने देखा होगा sociology in 10 minutes में हमने कैसे most of the most complicated aspect को एक structured तरीके में simple आसान भाषा से समझा। उसी तरीके से अगर if you are interested in understanding the entire sociological content, not only in the width but also in the depth, then you should definitely not miss this batch, because the next batch is going to start later and that would largely, if you are serious about 2024, then I think it's the right time to start your optional, whether it is socio or anything else, if anybody else is watching this lecture. But if you are taking sociology as your optional, then at this fees, the content, the notes, the mentorship, the test series, the things which we provide at StudyIQ, I can assure you, nobody else is going to provide you. Not only in this price, but also maybe, let's take maybe 5 times of this price also, you'll not be getting those So if you are interested and if you like the way I teach, because कहीं ना कहीं टीचर और स्टूडेंट के बीच में वो एक अंडरस्टैंडिंग भी होनी चाहिए. कई बार टीचर अच्छा होता है लेकिन समझ में नहीं आता है कि किस तरीके से हम जेल नहीं कर पाते उनकी टीचिंग से. तो if you are gelling up with the sociology in 10 minutes, then definitely you should be into this batch so that in next 5 minutes, next 5 months, your sociology is in your genetics, not just in your mind. So क्या एथनिसिटी एज अ फॉर्म ऑफ स्ट्रैटिफिकेशन आज भी मॉडर्न सोसाइटी का स्ट्रैटिफिकेशन समझा सकता है, या फिर आज के टाइम में क्लास और स्टेटस ही डोमिनेट करता है? यूपीएससी ने क्वेश्चंस पूछे हैं लेकिन उस लेवल पे कॉम्प्लेक्स क्वेश्चंस नहीं पूछे. कल क्वेश्चन पूछा जा सकता है कि क्लास स्टेटस आर नाउ मोर विग्रस फॉर्म ऑफ स्ट्रैटिफिकेशन व्हेन कंपेयर टू एथनिसिटी एंड रेस. डू यू एग्री? क्या ये सच है? क्या ये दिखाई दे रहा है? ये स्टार्ट करने से पहले मैं सीएच कूले जो सिंबॉलिक इंट्रैक्शनिस्ट है उनका एक स्टेटमेंट देना चाहता हूं. आई एम नॉट व्हाट आई एम, व्हाट आई थिंक आई एम नॉट व्हाट यू थिंक आई एम व्हाट आई थिंक यू थिंक आई एम. इसका मतलब मैं क्या हूं वो डिपेंड करता है कि आप मेरे बारे में क्या सोच रहे हो, और उसको मैं किस तरीके से लेता हूं वो मेरी आइडेंटिटी दर्शाता है. तो मॉडर्नाइजेशन स्कूल बोलती है एथनिसिटी रेस जैसे फॉर्म्स नहीं स्ट्रॉन्ग रहेंगे मॉडर्न सोसाइटी में, क्योंकि मेरिट बेस्ड सोसाइटी हो जाएगी, डेमोक्रेटिक सोसाइटी रहेगी, रैशनल फॉर्मल रूल बेस्ड सोसाइटी रहेगी. But since an individual identity to a very greater extent is also manufactured because through the process of socialization and culture, and the ethnicity and race has been always an intrinsic part of our cultural upbringings, underpinnings. In such circumstances, we often see that the ethnicity as a form of stratification have remained very prominent in understanding the divisions or the ranked grouping present in modern societies. Not only in the traditional times, the ethnicity led to the formation of nation states. Even in contemporary time, ethnicity is one of the primary instruments of largely stratifying the society on the basis of various aspects. For example, Helen Zia advocated that I am beautiful, I am educated, I have a good job, but I still remain an invisible entity because Zia belonged to a different ethnic identities when compared to the ethnic identities in which ethnic identity which dominated in the society in which she lived. Similarly, Anthony Giddens, with respect to the Society of Britain, advocates the ethnicization of workforce remains an important basis of largely determining one's occupations, further indicating that ethnicity still serves as a primary purpose or primary instrument of demarcating we and others. Hence, if you look into both of these scholars, they clearly show that even in the modern society, ethnicity remains vigorous. Ethnicity remains one of the strongest factor of largely demarcating and ranking the society. But however, the nature of ethnicity which was dominating in the earlier society is way different from the type of ethnicity which we live in. Steve Fenton talked about two types of ethnicities, hot ethnicity and cold ethnicity. Steve Fenton. Hot ethnicity is one where people are born conscious of their ethnic identities. कि वो जन्म से ही conscious होते हैं अपनी ethnic identity के बारे में. Maybe that they're North Indian versus South Indian, maybe they're Kannadigas versus Tamilians, or maybe that Assamese versus Cookies, or maybe any other forms of identities. Cold ethnicity is one where the people are not conscious of their ethnic identities, but they largely or subtly use their ethnic identities in order to gain benefits. Take an example. फेंटन ने एग्जाम्पल दिया था कि कैसे a particular businessman largely uses his own ethnic identities not because he's conscious of his ethnic identities or the cultural practices, but because in order to gain better business. Many business organizations today largely try to identify themselves with their respective ethnic identities not in order to promote that ethnic consciousness, but in order to largely promote their business. Earlier, the ethnicity largely remained hot ethnic identities where people were born conscious, internally conscious of their ethnic identities, but in contemporary time, although ethnicity serves as an important instrument of stratifications, but however, this nature of stratification based on ethnicity have drastically changed, where the hot ethnic identities have today been replaced by cold ethnic identities where you would have to make people conscious of their ethnic identities. they are not always conscious of their ethnic identities. Similarly, अगर हम race as a form of stratification देखें, तो race का मतलब क्या होता है? Race largely refers to a group of people who are biologically different. एक सिंपलेस्ट टर्म में रेस का ये मीनिंग होता है, ए ग्रुप ऑफ पीपल हु आर बायोलॉजिकली डिफरेंट, कि किसी एक पर्टिकुलर रेस को आप डिफरेंट बताते हो बिकॉज देयर बायोलॉजिकल फीचर्स आर डिफरेंट. दैट कुड बी ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ जेनेटिक्स, दैट कुड बी ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ कलर ऑफ द स्किन, दैट कुड बी ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ देयर फिजिकल एट्रीब्यूट्स. वो चाहे नोज का साइज हो, फोरहेड हो, प्यूपल का साइज हो, नॉस्ट्रिल्स का साइज हो, स्किन का कलर हो, या फिर on the basis of their genetic supremacies which many times have been professed in order to largely establish a rule of a dictator or an autocrat. Race as a form of stratification है क्या आज? The modernization school of Twani and others advocated कि race is no more a suitable instrument to understand the stratification in the Western societies, as the race has today been replaced because of the democratic societies which have been established, which are more egalitarian in character. ये एरिक्सन भी यही बोलते हैं कि कैसे देयर हैज बीन सो मच इंटरब्रीडिंग अमंग द वेरियस रेशियल कम्युनिटीज दैट इट इज डिफिकल्ट टू सस्टेन द आर्ग्यूमेंट ऑफ रेशियल सुप्रीमेसी, एंड देयरफॉर द रेस डज नॉट define the stratificational systems of a particular society. But however, there are a set of sociologists who largely reject and they advocate that race still remains a very important instrument of stratification. For example, Sorokin in the study of race and mobility indicated that how the degree of mobility experienced by people is directly impacted by the racial backgrounds which they largely have. The mobility among the blacks largely have remained not sustainable. They have largely at the best faced mobility, relative mobility, not absolute mobility. Garner advocates that race not only it's not dead, but it has become more stronger. It has expanded. As Garner advocates, the race today is identified not just on the basis of color, but it is largely having an understanding of more broader nature, where Garner equated Islamophobia also with the concept of race. Ratansi advocates hard racism and new racism. Hard racism was absolute demarcation of superiority and inferiority. New racism is in the form of subtle discrimination faced by the black peoples in their day-to-day life. Anderson advocates that how ghetto is largely considered as a place where the blacks live. It means that the blacks are still considered as the people of a racial community living in a particular set of places, indicating कि कैसे हमने stereotypical understanding develop की है with particular respective racial communities, that these are the communities which lives in ghetto. ये कैसे कहा जा सकता है कि ghetto में सिर्फ blacks रहते हैं? ये understanding ही अपने आप में बताता है कि किस तरीके से blacks आज भी बहुत सारी discriminations face करते हैं in the modern Western societies. Du Bois, a black feminist, clearly advocates that the problem of the 20th century is the problem of color line. कि कहीं ना कहीं still we often see that the blacks largely becomes the victims of status inconsistencies, double harmonics with respect to women's, where the women's largely becomes victim of both racial and gender ideologies. Status inconsistency का मतलब होता है कि blacks may have higher status because of their positions, but at the same time they would also largely become the victim of racial discriminations because of their racial identity. For example, अगर एक इंजीनियर या डॉक्टर या साइंटिस्ट है जो ब्लैक है, ब्लैक साइंटिस्ट, ब्लैक इंजीनियर और ब्लैक डॉक्टर, तो उसके प्रोफेशन के बेसिस पे हिज स्टेटस इज हाई इन दैट सोसाइटी, बट बिकॉज ऑफ द बेसिस ऑफ हिज रेशियल आइडेंटिटीज उसका स्टेटस लो होता है सोसाइटी में. चाहे आप इनमें से कोई स्कॉलर उठाओ, चाहे इनमें से उठाओ, चाहे एंथनी गिडेंस उठाओ, चाहे हेलन जिया उठाओ, यू वुड सी दैट कि रेस एंड एथनिसिटी हैव स्टिल रिमेन्ड अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट बेसिस ऑफ स्ट्रैटिफाइंग द सोसाइटी. The prediction of the modernist largely did not come true, that with the rise of rationality, with the rise of meritocracy, the race and ethnic identities would give space to class and status identities. Today, the class and the status are in a way influenced on the basis of one's ascribed identities. कि किस हद तक आपकी शिक्षा होगी, किस हद तक आपका ऑनर होगा, बहुत हाई लेवल तक आज भी आपके एथनिक और रेशियल आइडेंटिटी से इन्फ्लुएंस होते हैं. Even in India, we often see that the race may not have been a very stronger factor of demarcating the Indian society, but however, The racial underpinnings can sometimes be seen where we often see that a particular people at racial identity people are branded or stereotyped from a particular or labeled from a particular perspectives. Besbury committee ने बोला कि chinky word बोलना should be considered as a criminal offense. This committee was set up by government of India, I think roughly somewhere around 2014 or 15. Besbury committee shows कि कैसे chinky जैसे words indicate करते हैं racial hatred. It may not be a hatred as such, but at least it questions the identity of the people. और कमिटी बोलती है कि ये वर्ड यूज करना ये क्रिमिनल ऑफेंस होना चाहिए बिकॉज दिस इज लार्जली ब्रांडिंग अ पर्टिकुलर रेशियल पीपल एंड ब्रांडिंग देम और लेबलिंग देम फ्रॉम अ पर्टिकुलर नेगेटिव पर्सपेक्टिव्स. If this is the way you want to study the sociological concepts such as race, ethnicity, I hope you understand ethnicity and racial basis of stratification has so much of content. There are so much of divisions, there are so much debate present in these, but I've tried to largely make you understand that how race and ethnicity may not be the strongest form of stratification in the contemporary times as compared to the traditional society where it was the primary determining force of stratifying the societies. But however, advocating that the race and ethnicity today does not help in understanding stratification would largely not only be useless but more than useless in Weberian terms, as we often see that race and ethnicity still plays an important role in determining one's position, determining the stratification, determining the access, the status, and the achievements of a particular person. As we often see that the personality is also dominated or created by the various cultural pursuits present in society. तो प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड कि जब ये स्ट्रेटिफिकेशन के चैप्टर से स्टार्ट करते हैं तो बहुत डिबेट होती है. इन सबको आपको एक ऑर्गेनाइज्ड फनलाइज्ड मैनर के अंदर कंटेंट को ग्रास्प करना है. आपके पास दो दो तीन तीन स्कॉलर होने चाहिए हर आर्ग्यूमेंट को एलॉबरेट करने के लिए, और एज पर द डिमांड ऑफ योर क्वेश्चन यू शुड हिट दैट पर्टिकुलर स्कॉलर विथ रिस्पेक्ट टू द रिक्वायरमेंट ऑफ द क्वेश्चन given by UPSC in the examination. If you really want to take your sociology to a next level, our batch is starting from today itself. In the initial phase, I'll discuss in detail the very syllabus of sociology. Then we'll start with the sociological theories, and then we start with the paper 1, chapter 3. So get into the batch and really feel the rhythm of sociology. Take care. God bless you all. Happy studying.
StudyIQ IAS. अब तैयारी हुई अफोर्डेबल.